Hello, everyone, and welcome to the, I think, fifth or maybe sixth installment of Idle Banter with Doug and Damon today. Cody hasn't made it on yet. And today we will be talking about a topic that I think a lot of people have been talking about in recent months. Electrifying old classic cars. Is it a good idea or is it not? Should we keep them as they are, petrol variants, or should we modernize them, electrify them? And we got this idea from James May's video he did for the Drive Tribe YouTube channel where he drove an electrified MGB, and he quite liked it. And I'm sure we all have our own opinions about whether that was a good idea or not, so let's hop in. So I'd like to begin by saying I watched James's video and he did make some good points. Yeah, it's not going to break down because it's all modernized and it's quite new, and it'll be silent obviously because it's electric, so you won't be waking up your neighbors at 5 a.m. Not like you would with the old MGB though, because there was only a 4-cylinder, but
Trust me, Subarus and Ford Fiesta with straight pipes, you can make a lot of noise with a 4-cylinder.
That's true, but no one's going to straight pipe an old MGB.
No.
But for me, I am very much like Jezza in this aspect. Petrol engines, they just do something for me that electric engines don't do. Petrol engines, they have this kind of the noise and the drama and the panache that they have that just excites me, whereas electric motors and the electric engines just don't give me that. It's just too sterile and too fit inside the box kind of thing. So although I think James did a good job with that video, I do have to disagree. I think keeping cars as they were, petrol from the factory, is how it should stay.
I do agree with you. Before this, I love this kind of stuff, so I jumped in. And I was having a hard time. First of all, I was thinking, what car would I convert? And I come to two. It was a 67 to 72 Opel 1900 GT or the 240Z. And when you start looking and say, well, if I'm going to electrify one, what would I use? And ultimately, everything goes back to you're ripping up a Tesla and taking the battery packs and the drive and everything out of them. And, well, first of all, Teslas ain't cheap to begin with. Even if you find one that's damaged, but the drive lines are all good in it, the electrics are still good in it, you're still spending a lot of money. Like James's MGB, was it 90 grand for it?
Yeah, it was 90,000 pounds.
So, and something that you're not going to get that much mileage out of. I think you said it was under like 200 miles per charge.
160, I think it was.
Yeah, I think it was like 140, 160, yeah.
Yeah, I know it wasn't much. And he's like, well, just for running around town. Well, yeah, but no. What if you got cut in a traffic jam? You had to sit there for a while. Not only that, I don't want to start cutting out creature comforts when the battery starts dying. If I'm sitting somewhere and it's a 95-degree day and I got caught in a traffic wreck and now I'm sitting in traffic waiting, I don't want it to say, hey, you're running low on power, I'm going to turn the air conditioner off. No. You know. No.
It's a British designed car.
Sweat so much. So I know what that's like.
And that's where I have problems with electric cars. And for the money, it ain't worth it. And I think, especially environmental-wise, for what you're going to have to do to keep them batteries good and buying new batteries possibly, you're actually doing more damage to the environment than if you find something that is a very ecological and friendly gas-powered, petrol-powered motor and keep it that way.
It's interesting that you bring up the environmental consideration, because I did a while back do quite a lot of extensive research into the actual environmental cost of EVs, and you basically hit the nail on the head. buying new batteries every 7 to 10 years. It costs around about $7,000, which is quite expensive on its own. And then the old batteries go into a landfill, which is not that environmentally conscious, and making them isn't that environmentally conscious. So yeah, I think that's a good thing to take into consideration. Yeah. Damon, any thoughts on this?
Well, first thing, you don't run out of charge in traffic because the way the electric car works, energy sits in the battery until you press the go pedal. It's not burning at idle like you would in a petrol car. So it's 160 miles off range. It's not a petrol car where you got traffic. But I am with you mostly, yeah. Don't convert. Some cars, like an electric Mini, an electric original Mini, they're light. You can put a small battery pack in it, get 80 miles. You're not going to take a Mini on the motorway, be honest. Get a light, little, fun car, and it gives it that get up and go that a Mini always, a tiny chassis. I say that, and then I say there is a very specific type of car which you can electric swap, and I went around every single classic car I know, and I found out it doesn't exist.
Okay,
you need
an all-electric car sitting in traffic doesn't burn electricity because you're not hitting the throttle. Well, how are you running radio, lights, gauges, air conditioning?
Fair enough.
Yeah, I was going to say, that didn't make sense to me. I was hoping you could explain.
Oh, yeah. You've got that one. If you drive a go-kart, if you drive an electric go-kart, it doesn't use any electricity in traffic.
Well, yeah, but they don't have air conditioning, stereos, gauges.
I live in London. Air conditioning is not needed.
You don't live here. Yeah, air conditioning is very important.
Yes.
And
the hardest they got was about 75 degrees.
All of the cars my dad's had, so I've had no air conditioning, or in the case of the Prius, the air conditioning is about as useful as blowing on someone next to you.
It's about as useful as blowing on someone with a straw. Yeah.
Not even with a straw, using through a face mask. Terrible.
That's not suggested.
Huh?
If you've been in Ohio, and I know Leila's worse off than I am, you get in Ohio in the summer and you get 90-degree days with 80-some% humidity, and you sitting still. You better have some very absorbent seats or waterproof seats because you sweating, and you can't just you got to have air.
So electric cars don't work in a warm climate, it seems. That's the first problem.
And then they have issues in really cold. So even here in Ohio, if it drips down, last year we got down to -24, and that's not wind chill. So
cold.
Your electrics just don't work. Your phone don't work. You sit outside for a minute, that phone.
So electric cars only work in England where the weather is dull constantly. We had snow today, at least in London. I know up north they got a reasonable, proper amount of snow. In London, there was not even enough. There was no snow on the ground, just a bit foaming on the cars, and within half an hour it all melted away anyway. It's pathetic, the weather in London. It's terrible. As in dull. You don't get anything nice. It's all dull, grey, rain. I'm going to stop here because I will go on for half an hour ranting about how bad London is. I'm going to have to stop myself here.
Can I also say, the reason I'm iffy on electric anyway. I think mostly because it's not that reliable yet. And as car enthusiasts, we want to work on our own cars. We want to do things.
That's a big problem with electric cars. You can't.
If a car breaks down, I want to be able to at least have a chance of myself fixing it. Whereas if you electrify something, I probably can't do it. So,
with Tesla, they won't let you do it. They don't let you do fixes. A lot of electric cars. My main problem isn't electric cars, it's the other changes that come along with it and kind of this techifying of the car, which is what Tesla are doing, and what I feared Sony would do if they actually built what they call their concept car, I can't remember, but their little saloon car into a proper car, because it's turning cars into another tech product, which I think cars is kind of the last kind of consumer thing you can buy that hasn't already kind of become that.
And I see the electric car as kind of like your cell phone. What happens when your cell phone starts going bad? You chuck it and go get another one. You don't sit there and take it apart, put it back together and say, hey, I fixed it. Well, there are those who can, but as a rule, most people don't. And that's how I see electric cars, even your computer. Once they get so old or so bad, you chuck it and go get another one.
Yeah.
Electronics are disposable now.
And that's what... If people bought electric cars, drove them till the battery was completely shot and degraded, and just replaced the battery, did that for 40 years, it would probably be better environmentally. But people don't do that nowadays. People are going to drive for 8 years. When the battery life gets below, 200 miles of range, they're going to scrap the car. And that's all of any type of savings done. Because also disassembling batteries, and if you don't want them to end up in landfill, takes a lot of time. I don't think efficiency... It is... The marginal difference isn't worth all the infrastructure change we want to do, for one. And I think one day, electric cars will maybe become viable, but for at least the next... If we continue using lithium-ion, we're better off telling all the oil tankers to stop using so much oil. We'd do a lot better putting restrictions on how old, how dirty an oil tanker can run, rather than dealing with the cars themselves at the moment, with lithium-ion.
Let's say just like that, the electric cars have a lifespan, whereas a gas-powered car, petrol-powered car, I'm sorry, I'm American, I call it gas still.
You call it liquid gas?
Yeah.
We have liquid gas.
Yeah.
LPG, so liquid petroleum gas.
Whereas something that is petrol-powered, its life is infinite, really. If you take care of it, I seen a thing where a Toyota Tundra turned 1 million miles, and Toyota was trying to get the truck from the guy because they literally wanted to laser cut the engine down so they could see wear and tear on the engine. Okay, 1 million miles. Now, for diesels, that's not out of the question, but for a petrol-powered engine, that's pretty daggone high. So, why not?
That's because it's a Toyota.
Well, that does help a lot. Like one of the conversions I seen, and I thought, now that is something I would do. It was the little Opel I was talking about, GT 1900. And guess what they put in it that I thought was brilliant? A Honda S2000 engine.
Ooh.
So a high revving, 4-cylinder, really roughly the same weight, in a little lightweight sports car from the late 60s, real early 70s, depending on where you buy it, what model, and I thought that's brilliant. And you don't have to do a lot of change. It's a reliable engine. It's a Honda. It'll run forever. Emissions aren't bad. Fuel economy would be fantastic because the little engine isn't stressing that hard. And
not until you hit VTEC.
Then why, if you upgrade some suspension and you're still going to come out cheaper than $90,000 for an electrified MGB. And I can run anywhere. It takes 5 minutes and that's not counting standing in line at the petrol station, fill it up, you're back on the road, lick split, out, done. And if something happens, there's a good chance you can fix it yourself.
Yeah, whereas an electric car, if you try to fix the thing,
I don't like EV conversions,
end up
but for a
looking
different
like
reason.
the mad scientist from Back to the Future. Your hair will be like this.
Dr. Brown.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't like because there is an atmosphere a classic car gives, and the petrol engine is a part of that. The smell of the petrol coming out of the exhaust, the sound, especially if you have a straight 6 E-Type. I was listening to some pure sound footage of a slightly tuned up E-Type. I think it was making 300 horsepower, naturally aspirated, kind of period correct tuning to it. So it's got a kind of classic style, just fiddling with the engine. It sounded gorgeous. There is some aroma you get with a classic car. You lose that with an electric one.
Yeah. And James May says that classic cars, they're good to look at, but they're not good to drive. I do have to disagree with him on that as well, because I have driven my dad's E-Type. I've done that a few times, and it is quite fun to drive. You have the manual transmission, which obviously,
from a logical
as petrol
standpoint,
know.
They
you
aren't.
get that, like,
But they're fun. They're fun. From a logical standpoint, they have no grip compared to modern cars. They've got the suspension is rudimentary at best, but that makes it fun.
Yeah.
Like, from a logical, an E-Type won't beat. I don't think it would beat a modern MX-5 round a twisty track, but it's a lot more fun.
And it's not like you're gonna expect it to be that good because it is 55 years old. 60 years old. Well, mine is 55, but the E-Type in general is 60 years old now. So yeah, you wouldn't expect it to go like a modern car because it's not.
Yeah.
And so
you don't need to make it go like a modern car.
That you hold modern coupes to because they're two completely different classes.
Well, it to me. Okay, this might be a weird comparison, but since I grew up, look, it's like you can go back and buy you a 70s TV, big floor-mounted thing. It sits on the floor in a big wood box, and it's cool because it's like being back there in the day, and you see what it's like, and it's fun. But you don't buy it for yourself. You want the LED TV that mounts on your wall that has, 4K, 5K, whatever you want, the ultimate picture. But to go back and see how it was back, like when I was a kid, yeah, it's fun and it's cool and it's all, hey, that's how it was back in the day. But you never want it in your house. You don't go out and say, I'm going to take down my flat screen and put this big floor model. Why? Because it's really cool. But no, you don't. You don't. And I see cars the same way. Once you go back and you start looking, yes, they're beautiful because they were made with style and not cookie cutter like today. But then once you, like an old MGB, let's talk about that. You jump in one, and I've rode in those. It's like old Carmageas. They're kind of cool. They look nice. But then once you start going down the road, you think, no. It's cool for that moment because you're reliving a bit of history. It's looking through old eyes again. And trust me, old eyes aren't good. I have them. And you sit and you think, this is really neat for a minute. But then please give me my modern car back because I want modern stuff. I like brakes that actually stop. I want a cooling system that actually works. And please, can I have electronics that actually do what I ask of them? And these old
You still won't get those.
And these well, they're a lot better than they used to be. I promise you, my man. They do work a whole lot better now than they ever did. And I think that is something we always come back to because otherwise, instead of modern cell phones, we'd still be holding on to a receiver that's hooked to a cord that runs to a wall. It does the same job, but we don't go back to it. Why? Because it's old. We want new stuff.
I mean, good analogy.
50-50.
I still have to disagree with you though, because, and maybe I have a slightly warped view of classic cars because the E-Type that my dad has is actually pretty freaking reliable. That thing, it's strange. It is so
probably
strange.
because it's well maintained.
But it should not go the way it does, but it does. And the brakes work. Cooling system is fine. Engine still sounds great. Still pulls when you mash the throttle down. It still goes pretty well. And obviously the gearbox still works. You still shift. It still gets in first, second, third, fourth. So maybe my view is a bit warped because the classic car that I have actually functions pretty well. Yeah. But I do still enjoy it because I do still feel connected to the car. Whereas a modern car, let's say a modern EV, or even my dad's truck or my mom's Audi, even though I love that Audi, it doesn't give me quite the same feeling and quite the same level of connection as a very old, rudimentary E-Type with no screen or not very many electronics to speak of can give me. So, I'm only 16, but I act like I'm 60.
And Doug, on the big box TVs versus flat screens, I had a flat screen in my room for a short while, and when that thing died, because it died pretty soon after I got it in my room, I had a small budget, and I was honestly thinking of trading back down to it, because I was only running a PS2 on it. So right. I was thinking of trading back down to the box TV
Well,
It would have been cheap.
maybe part of that is because I lived through those times. So I just, when I look back, I look back in fondness because, you know, back then I was looking at it, these were brand new cars, and they were great because back then they were brand new. They were the pinnacle of technology, you know. But once you see that and you've lived that bit, and then now, you know, well, I'm 46 now, so let's just go 30 some years later, you look back and you think, yeah, but they're great, and I love looking at them, and I love old cars. I just do, because they were made with style and they were made to look great, and I love that. But I never forget that they're still that old, and they were great then. But now, I think they should be saved. I do, and I think a lot of them should be made, you know, and kept the way they are, and restored back to original. Like if somebody cut up your E-Type and tried to EV it, I would be hot. That would be too much for me.
I would take a pickaxe and cut their face up. Take what's the type back and put that straight six back in it.
I prefer a sledgehammer, honestly.
Yeah, well, I do like sledgehammers. So I think some cars need to be left alone, and preserved. But then there are cars. Okay, let's go back to the MGB. There were gangs of them, and they were a bit Morgan, since, you know, the floors were plywood. Do you really want a plywood floor in your car? Well, they worked back then, but I don't. And may I say, the other thing is, okay, would you take something like that and say, well, it's how it was back in the day, and that be your only car, and say, no, I refuse to drive anything new. I want only, let's say, an old MGB or an old Carmagia, just an old car, you know. Now, your E-Type is an exception. I mean, let's face it, it is. But as a rule, I mean, no, you're probably going to want something newer.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, fair point. I do see where you're coming from, and I do think plywood.
I think it is an age thing as well, because because May talks about 60s cars in the way that Doug is talking about cars from his era, the 80s, and I can already tell in 30 years' time that's how I'm going to be looking at mid-2000s cars, because I've grown up with them. Early 2000s cars in my area, but I've grown up around these types of cars, and I like them now, but I'm slowly starting to look at them and, I mean, they were cool, especially the Mercedes CLK. That's the one for me. They were cool back in 2007, 2008, and I still think they look brilliant. But if they were just a bit more reliable, it'd be brilliant. And I can see exactly how Doug's thinking of that with cars he's grown up around.
Yeah.
And so I can definitely see that side of it, and I think it might be to do with an age thing, because that car represented tech for me back then, and there's probably cars that represented technology for you back then. Mm-hmm. And now it's moved on. It's kind of the cool aspect that car had is gone now, because it's been superseded by literally everything.
Okay, so, yeah, and that's exactly it. Like, I grew up, the Ferrari 308 was a great looking car. The Testarossas, they were, you know, the Countachs, and you know, those were the cars you looked at, and that was the pinnacle of. And now look, a Subaru can outrun them. They're not
a Subaru STI. Yeah.
No, like, okay, if
even 10 years later, the Quasis could outrun them.
Give me a 67 Cougar XR7 with a nice 289 hypo sitting in it. Forest green. Trust me, I had one. I had one, and I loved it. Give me that sitting in my garage for those days where I just want to relive that moment. But you know what? Give me a Subaru WRX sitting right next to it. Give me a modern car that will run circles around this thing. But when I have that nostalgia, when I have that moment of, you know what, I want to relive that, I'll get in my Cougar and drive around. But when I just want to go down to the store, or I'm taking an actual road trip somewhere, I'm going to get in a modern car. Why? First of all, the old Cougar that I had only had AM radio. Okay, first of all, that sucks. Okay, there's no Bluetooth connectivity. You don't have any navigation system. It's not GPS. It's
My dad still listens to AM radio.
It's called maps. And
we have Bluetooth in our Prius, and yet we still listen because it's only an AM radio and DAB, which Prius isn't new enough to have. We listen to AM radio quite a bit, and I can tell it's not the greatest, not the most advanced system in the world.
Well, I promise you, AM radio in the United States is basically dead. It's basically dead. So, you don't have power steering. Maybe you do. Well, you aren't going to want to drive cross country in a car that you have to wrestle. You want something you're going to lay back in and cruise in. And that's why I say you got to have either both. I don't know too many people who would just say, hey, I'm going to buy me a 72 MPV and that's my car, right? I won't have anything else. I'm not going to own it because No, you're not. Maybe there's a few mad people out there who do, but no, you're not.
If I had my camera on, I'd put my hand up there.
Speaking to that point, though, Doug, about people.
I have to ask, what constitutes a modern
just
car?
Empty. There's a guy in my neighborhood, a few blocks away, who has an old MGB and an old Land Cruiser. Land Rover Defender 90, but he also has a couple of Teslas. So yeah, he's not gonna just have the Defender 90 and the MGB. He's also going to have some modern stuff, the Model 3 and the...
So he can get places.
On Tesla Coupe.
Exactly, David.
So he can get somewhere, yeah. So he can go down, do his weekly shopping, and not be stuck in the parking lot going, oh, why won't it start up?
He'd be lucky to get that far with the MG.
Do what?
He'd be lucky to get that far with the MG.
Yeah. And dare I say, it's the same with Teslas. Everybody I don't really know anybody that owns one, but anybody I've seen who does own one, there's a Tesla and they're happy to own it, but there's a petrol-powered car sitting right next to it.
Yeah.
Even Rich had a Z06. The whole time he was doing up the Teslas, when he just did Tesla content, he had a Z06.
Yeah.
C6 one.
And I believe old cars are the same way. You can enjoy an old car, and it's fine because I love them too. But you're going to have something modern because you don't want just that.
What constitutes a modern car, though?
Well, definitely anything.
Something that was made within the last decade or so, 15.
Because 10 years old is still new to me. Because we've constantly. I don't think we had a newer than 2010 car. No, newest car is the Prius 2007 plate, I think. So, to us, a modern car, I think, is 2000 and beyond. Because at that point, everything got reasonably reliable. If you didn't buy a luxury car, you'd have reasonable electronics. Start becoming safe, which is a major thing. Safety became a major thing, finally.
Yeah.
And we finally got rid of cars that had under 100 horsepower outside of really small cars. Because... you could still buy an Escort with an 80 horsepower engine in the 90s.
Yeah. And that's a fair enough trade too, is, old cars are not very safe when you are in a wreck. You're not. Your chances aren't great. I mean, you'll be 20 foot from it no matter what happens, but don't think you're going to be safe in it. And if you watch the old crash test videos where they crash the old cars, they don't do well. Your life is in danger. So no.
You know what's strange about that though is my dad. I was passenger in a couple of accidents in the Jag a few years ago, and both times, me and the driver came out unscathed.
Yeah.
But it depends on what type of accident.
It's usually old cars, like you said, aren't that good.
Because that E-Type has a halo around it, which means it doesn't have the disease of being unreliable like all other British cars have, and it doesn't have, it has a halo around it.
Angel halo, yeah.
I'd say the Rover has a mini one because it's a British car sat for 8 years. We put new spark plugs in it, new petrol in it, and it started with just those things.
Yeah.
And I think that's a miracle in itself for that. We haven't done anything since starting it, but.
So that's where I think that if old cars are great because you can start with whatever canvas you want. But I'm going to go back to the little Opal. If I could have that, they're a beautiful little body style, little 2C, long nose, teardrop back end. I love it. Give me some chrome wire wheels, a red, blue, or black paint job. But give me that S2000 engine in it with a little 5-speed. Give me some Wilwood brakes or some Brembos on discs, all 4 wheels. Give me some upgrades in it, and I can keep the dash for the most part, but you know what? I want a stereo that has, some Bluetooth connectivity for my phone. I want to take an old car and bring it into the modern world. I still have the great looks of that old car, and I can sit and go, hey, look at it. It's beautiful. But when I start it up, it will start. And when I go down the road, it continues to go down the road. And when I hit the brake pedal, I don't have to hope. It just stops. And I want to be able to take my phone and connect and talk. And I want modern features, but I want that old car. And I think that is where we're going to go. I think that they're going, especially like my age. You look back, they're beautiful cars, but then you think, yeah, but I don't want to drive that all the time. But you can make that old car something you would drive every day, to and for work, shops, pick kids up, whatever you want to do, pick your car, and it becomes more functional at that point. So I think that's the way to do it. And I agree with James. The old cars they're fun to look at. They're beautiful. They were designed well, which a lot of new cars aren't. But they're still old. They're still old.
I mean, yeah, they're old.
Yeah.
I mean, that's
at what point?
fact.
But you say S2000 engine swap, which it's still a petrol engine. It's still a 4-banger petrol engine. So at what point is you transforming it too much? Like, at what point, I'd say the grey area of this is LS swapping a rotary engine. This is a grey area that's been a debated topic for ages, because there is a point where it's perfectly fine to modernise a car. Like, honestly, I'm definitely going to put seatbelts in the Rover if we ever get around to ever doing it, which doesn't seem like something that's going to happen. But if we do, it's getting seatbelts, getting a modern brake servos, getting power steering, getting a modern radiator fan, electric fan grill thing, a modern battery and stuff. And that's all fine, I think. But where is that grey area?
You would hate my next option, which I told Leila about. While looking, to me, if I'd done something like an Opal with an S2000, that's mild. They both are 4 cylinders. They're both, I'm trying, but you're moving a modern engine. But in all my looking, if you want to go radical crazy, there's I think it's a 72 240Z, and they stuffed the Elephant engine in it. That's 1,000 horsepower Dodge Hemi V8. Supercharged out of the Demon, basically.
I would have taken a GTR engine.
And that's a popular option. It's how radical do you want to get? And now you're talking a whole nother league. But I think let's go with the Opal. If you're swapping a 4-cylinder for a 4-cylinder, well, you aren't really changing much, really. Now, if you want to swap a 4-cylinder and stuff a V8, now you're really changing something. That's like the people who take their little VW Bugs and drop the motor out and want to put a V8 in it. It's like,
like Clarkson did with the beach buggy.
Yeah,
I was just watching an episode.
Sticking a range of a V8 in a.
Well, parked it next to a beach buggy, but
yeah, and I have actually seen it.
Quite quickly into a V8.
Yeah. So I think that there's some things. Well, one of the ones I looked at, and I actually sent it to Cody because I figured he would like it. So I was hoping he would be here. They were rebuilding, resto modding a 67 Charger RT, and they had put the Viper V10 with the drag pack option in it. Now, look, that is just, that's tingly. That's tingly. You're taking an old car that wasn't that good. They looked fantastic. But now you're giving it a nice engine in it. You're giving it something it kind of deserves. And you're bringing it into the newer time. Why not?
That is a good idea, though. I think a Viper engine in any old muscle car would go quite nicely.
Yeah.
Now, that being said, imagine, just an idea I just had, the old Shelby GT500 from the late 60s,
Right?
drop a Viper engine in it.
Oh,
Nah.
you kick some people off, Leila.
I'm one of those people. I don't think that's a good idea. Because what made that? Because the classic cars have a thing that made them, and what made the GT500 was its engine. That was what made it different from a normal Mustang.
Yeah.
And I'd say keep the engine in that one. If you're gonna do it to a GT350, a normal Mustang GT Fastback, do it to those. But the GT500, the historical piece that car special for is the engine itself.
Okay, I might start a fight here. Now, like Cody said, well, you got to keep it this way because, and then me and Leila was talking about, hey, no, swap it out, put a Viper motor in it. Why? Because do people who, and I get this way on certain cars, I do. So I'm in this boat as well. You get so close-minded on preserving things that you aren't open-minded to new things. And just like, me and you with the S2000, to me, I don't see how that damages anything or does anything other than make it better. Because I'm really just swapping a 4-cylinder for a 4-cylinder, but I want a new one that revs higher, does better fuel economy. I don't have to change the oil every 1,000 miles. I can do it every 5,000 miles. I don't have to worry about changing plugs every 500 miles. And that's what these old engines do. You are always working on them. I want something that I can drive, and in 5,000 miles, I can pop the oil plug out, pop a new filter in, drop some oil in it. I'm back on the road. I don't want to do this all the time. And I remember when those cars, and plus, let's get into distributors. They have distributor caps on them. Just anybody dealt with these. And okay, look, you're always.
I've seen one. I still don't know what it does.
And now you're going out with timing lights, and do you guys even know what a timing light is? Okay, I mean, really, you're going out and you work on these cars all the time. Why? I want to drive it. I want to enjoy it. Therefore, give me the modern engine. I don't have to deal with all the time. I don't have to put all the work into. I just get to enjoy what it is.
I guess if Cody's thinking is similar to me in that sense, I guess we're more on the purist side where we want to kind of preserve that car. And it definitely depends whether like I think we'd all agree if you swapped a Elephant engine into the E-Type, Leila wouldn't let that slide straight by.
Well, no, I wouldn't even let that slide by. First of all, that's an abomination. If somebody's done it and somebody has an E-Type, then hey, that's on them. Man. Build your vision.
Lots of like I don't. If you generally think that's a good idea, go for it. Like if you're building a car just to sake of piss off the internet, like people who EV swap RX-7s, Corvettes, and then you should not be allowed near the car. But if you genuinely think what you're doing is good, do it, because everyone has a different line somewhere.
Yeah.
It's like the difference between people who, as you said, EV swap actually good cars, Corvettes and so on, and the people like the True Builds who who are attempting to put a nice LS V8 in a Tesla.
And the main thing with that,
agree, that's a pretty solid idea.
And the main thing with that is that Tesla was already a scrap car. It was a flood car he tried to fix and he gave up on, or he couldn't get the bits for, and that car was either going to end up with an LS or end up in a scrapyard. So it's not a waste of a car. That car wouldn't be on the road.
It makes everyone happier, and streets giving people joy.
Leads me on to what we were talking about just before we started recording. We talked quite a bit about before then. Which was reproduction cars that are exactly the same as the ones produced back in the past, because you're not destroying any historical evidence, and you can add what car you want, and you can add a modern engine without anyone saying anything different, because you can't get an old engine.
I don't know. I see. To me, if that could really get into a whole nother topic altogether. Okay, let me jump back here real quick. What about, Leila, you love this. When I was looking at the Opel one of the popular switches was to put a straight six Jag engine in it. Okay, now see, and the other option was the 6-cylinder BMW engine in one. So you're taking German and German, but you're giving it reliability. And who cares? You're cutting up an open. I mean,
Hammond would care.
Close to that Jag straight six though, so you know I'm gonna go with that one.
Yeah. Now, Damon, what you just said, I just watched literally before this the video Hammond put up on Drive Tribe.
Oh, yeah, I just remembered. I watched that yesterday. When it first came out.
You know, the wild purple paint job, you know, a V8 inside of it. Now, to me, that would hurt because I like Oliver for Oliver, you know.
Yeah, same thing here.
Restore it mildly. Yeah. And
I'd say leave it as is and go pick up the Lancia. Yeah.
Or, you know what, buy two. Let's put Oliver back to the way he was. Buy another
one.
And rot it out the way you want it.
And slam it, yeah. Do a full, like, JDM fanboy type thing. Slam
JDM
No, this is. I'm thinking more lowrider with the bounty suspension. I'm thinking more lowrider. 70 lowrider little cadet.
Yeah. That would be something. So, and I think a lot of it is, let's face it, there's a lot of old classic cars, and you can make them any way you want. I'll go to Mustang. Look, there is nothing you can't buy for a Mustang. Nothing. You can buy a complete frame. You can buy every body panel, windshields, taillight. You can buy everything. You can build it in your garage. It's not an old one, and nobody gets upset. That's fair. But let's face it, there's a lot of old Mustangs out there. They made millions of them. So, and there's a gang of people, even where I live, who have restored them back to numbers matching, factory original, and they're beautiful. They're great. And that's fine. We preserved a bit of history. But then when you do see somebody who said, you know what, I cooked the engine out and I found an all aluminum modernized 427 dropped in it. And then I took the gearing and I threw the transmission out and I went and got a modern Mustang transmission and put in it because I didn't want a 2-speed. I wanted a 6-speed. Well, you know, now I can't blame them. Can't. It's, and you know, you don't ride around on polyglass tires anymore. You don't. And you want newer tires. You want something that's better because if you go back and buy the original polyglasses from the 60s and the 70s, you aren't going.
No grip.
If it's rainy outside, you don't go. If it's snowy, you stay home. Yeah. Because they can't, they're horrible. And that's another reason I say old things aren't always good. They're just not.
But they aren't always bad either.
No.
Yeah.
But you don't always go back to them.
There's some old things to go back to, and then there's other things where it's like, no, just leave it while it is, move on.
Or you bring it with you. You think, you know what, it's great, but I'm going to update it as I go and make it more new. So it's more functional, more enjoyable.
Yeah.
So I think maybe it is an age thing. Maybe it is. I look back and I remember and
yeah, I think it's all pretty individual. It's pretty subjective because Damon and I say, okay, modern cars are the ones.
There's a limit.
2000s and classic cars are just amazing to look at and amazing to drive and be around. Whereas you, Doug, you say that, yeah, they're good to look at, but they're not really good for anything else. So I think it's definitely based on when you grew up, where you grew up, what kind of environment you grew up around, and how your opinion has progressed since then, with how the times have moved on. Yeah.
Could be a whole other episode.
Yeah.
We could have a 3-parter out of this.
Yeah. Like a lot of my family when I was young, they had Lincolns and Cadillacs. And you thought back then they were the pinnacle of cars. They were great, you know, for what they were. And They were luxurious and all that with their, Volgalore upholstery and all the other stuff. And back then you thought, hey, I'm riding in a really great car. Well, okay, if I walk over and somebody's got one that's still factory newish that they've kept, and I got an uncle who's got a parking garage full of them. And, you walk through and you think they're gorgeous cars, and you open it up and you think, yeah, the interior is a bit, and and especially once you're past that. When I was a kid, I loved them. And then as I got older, especially now, and I go up and I look at them and I think, oh my God, no, you start to understand that newer is just better. It's just
Well, especially with the old Cadillacs, because as you said, those seats were absolutely hopeless. I don't know how people back in the 50s and 60s thought that was luxury, because it was some vinyl on some foam put together with some plastic.
Well, now see, in the old in Cadillacs I grew up riding around in, they were the Volgalore. It was horrible. And they were thick seats with these like pillow toppers on top. So you had like a seat with more seat, and then you had it in the back too.
Yeah, double seat.
Yeah, and
double-decker seats.
Seat belts were mandatory. So when you're a child running around on the back seat in the freeway, running around, playing with your Hot Wheels in the back window, they were fine. But you don't want to ride in them today. And I hope, like, trucks are the same way. I grew up riding in a late 60s C10 Chevy truck. And you go over a speed bump, you'd ricochet your head off the roof of it. It had a metal roof, metal doors, metal floors. We would clean it by opening up both doors, the driver and the passenger, and spraying the whole truck out with a garden hose. Okay, because there's nothing in it. There's no carpet. The seats were vinyl. They were literally made to be hosed out. There was no power steering, no power brakes. And that was just normal. Would I go back to that over like 2010 Tacoma? No, I won't, because it's just better, and it's 10 years old. Because you have a serious fear in old trucks of being thrown out of them. Okay, you'll go right out the window. So that's why I say you can look back. They're a beautiful old truck, but they suck. You hold on for dear life going down the road, because it's like an old Willys Jeep. Yeah, I still love them because I love the old Willys Jeeps. But would I ride it? Would I go buy one and say, this is now my new daily driver? No. But would I love to have one sitting in a garage next to a brand new Rubicon? Yes. Because I'll drive the Rubicon every day and have my nostalgia life in the old Willys.
Yeah, and speaking of that, actually, about 6 months ago, my dad was looking at old Toyota Land Cruisers, and we actually went out and test drove a, 1973 Land Cruiser with, I kid you not, white and red paint, so it was like a Rolls Royce, and a 3-speed manual, which was incredibly difficult to get into gear. And we went on the highway for about 2 seconds, and I was like, what, how am I going to survive?
Yeah.
The highway wasn't even bumpy, and I was like, and the noise, my ears were practically bleeding because of all the noise.
Yep.
And we were only doing about 55 because we couldn't go any quicker, and people passed us like this. I'm like, we're going to die.
Okay, here's a great story. When I was young, my uncle had a Model A and Model T, and they were in great condition. We drove, I don't know, it's about 20 miles from here to another little town where my grandfather lived. And he said, hey, let's take the Model A. Fantastic. They're great. They're full of drama. You get out, you crank the front end and to start the car, and there's a whole procedure to get it to go forward. And if you don't get it right, it goes terribly wrong. If you don't crank the right way, you break your arm. And going down the road was a lot of drama and theater. It was a lot of pops and bangs, and it made weird noises, and it was loud, and it was shaking because it would only do 40 mile an hour on a 55, 65 mile an hour highway. So then you're worried about getting ran over. We're on wood wheels. Wood wheel, okay?
Wood, oh god.
Wood wheel. And you know what? When I was a kid, it was fabulous because it was like, this is what it was back in the day. But in all reality, it was terrifying because you realize you're in basically a tractor with a little bit of body work on it going down the road. And that's what I'm saying. So even as a child, the Model A, Model T, were cool cars because that was the start of for us Americans. And it was like, okay. But even as a child, I was glad that I then got in my mom and dad's Buick Electra and drove home because it was a safe car. When I was in it, I didn't feel like it was going to fall over. I knew it would make it back home. And we would do fine. Plus, hey, the air conditioner worked in it. It had a working radio in it. So even then, I knew the difference. It was great to take those little rides around town in a Model A or Model T. And I don't want to go back to a car that's going to break my arm trying to start it.
Those old cars, the Model A, Model T, and that Citroen that James May had in season 15 of Top Gear with the Mallorca competition. What was that like? Road rally competition, and
that was a 60s
had
car.
to crank it to start it up.
That was an old car. It's just France managed to uninvent the key turn.
Why do I have to do this to get it to begin?
Yeah.
It was like the immobilizer. What was it on the latest episode of the Grand Tour? James had to cater him with the switch.
The battery cut off.
It was like the battery immobilizer or something. You had to pull it out. It's like, why would you have that on the outside of the car?
Well, it's if you flip over.
The access.
If you flip over, then the marshal can come pull it out. It's for a race car technology.
Yeah.
On race cars, they have it on like GT3 cars, they have it in front of the windscreen. It's just a pull handle, and that cuts off the engine, so then you don't catch fire upside down.
Well, what was it? The old Citroen C. Damon, I know you know it.
2CV? You think?
Yeah, 2CV. When you open the door, it looks like lawn chairs have just been bolted to the floor pan.
We have in the UK. We have a kind of children's-ish show, like kind of teenager show, like 10 to 13-year-old show. Yeah. They had this old 2CV. They had this 2CV, and even it looked. And as it drove down the road, it looked flimsy. And the main character of that. The only car related trait in the entire thing is the main character of that show hated that 2CV, like hated it.
Well, yeah, they're terrible.
It was the French's answer to the VW Beetle, and it somehow was.
It predates the Beetle.
Yeah.
It predates the Beetle. It's a 1930s design they kept making to the mid 90s or mid 80s.
Didn't know that.
No, I didn't either.
Right. Either way,
they predated it, and then when Germany tried to invade France, they had to hide the cars under covers, and there's still some prototypes in barns in France somewhere, apparently.
And to jump back to Leila and the Land Cruiser you guys test drove, you're talking about bouncing, hopping around, going deaf, having your teeth rattled out of your head. Meanwhile, you're being held in by a lap belt. That is, anything happens at any kind of speed is just going to fold you like a taco over. So you're going to kiss your knees when you hit something. And, it's horrible. There again, you don't want to go back to that. Then what did we do? In the mid-'80s, early 90s, Chrysler had the brilliant idea that to promote seat belts, they would have the automatic seat belts that move.
Oh, they're cool.
And then what happened? When that failed, your seatbelt was stuck in the middle of your window, a foot and a half away from you, and there was nothing you could do about it. So, or you was trying to do it, and it would lock back and half strangle you to death, because it's going to shut and lock into position regardless of what you're doing. We don't want to go back to that.
Oh, yeah. There's a lot of old technology that they thought it was a good idea. They genuinely thought, yes, this is what we're going to do to promote...
Because they didn't have an alternative at the time. Like, they didn't have a key to barrel start at the time, except France. Still don't know why that car had it, but...
They actually de-promoted safety, because with the automatic seatbelt...
I can't remember what car,
just strangle you. How is that safety? It's not. It's just killing.
I can't remember what car, but there was a car where they literally removed the seatbelts because people thought that the seatbelts made the car look unsafe. People thought if the car needed a seatbelt, that car was unsafe. So halfway through its production run, they removed them.
Yeah. And that's why I say old cars aren't good. They're good to go back and remember how things were. But it is there to remind you that be thankful for our modern car. You imagine being, in Model T, Model A, we're going really far back. Would you want to stand out in sub-zero weather, freezing to death, and trying to crank start your old car with the handle? No, you don't. You want a heated steering wheel. You want heated seats. You want defrost mirrors. And you want all that. Because why? That's nice to have. And that's why I say old cars are great for remembering what it was, but they're not great for every day.
And with all the modern technology, you will survive and you will not die on the hard shoulder trying to fix a 70-year-old's car because a car...
I had a rant about that. Well, about the lack of hard shoulders in the UK anymore on all-round sectional drive tribes.
I saw that. That. Yeah. I was like, oh, cock.
because everyone's asking them to widen the motorways because they have terrible congestion. Government don't want to pay to widen the motorway, so instead they're putting gantry signs. I think Top Gear talks about it towards the end. Putting gantry signs, and then they open the hard shoulder as a normal lane. And if you break down, you're supposed to stop in the lane and call up, and they will put an X over the gantry sign to tell people to stop going there. It's stupid. I'm not looking up. My dad is not looking up to the sky while driving.
That lane and they crash into you and then you die.
Look, if my dad is not looking up at the gantries every time he's driving, it is incredibly easy to miss a little X on a little sign. And then they also put variable speed limits, which is only either to make sure you don't go past 4 miles an hour near a construction zone, or to get money. It's terrible. Just put normal roads back there. Normal motorways with actual hard shoulder.
I think we've slightly gone off topic.
Yeah, we went way off rails there, right? Which we're known to do.
Always do. Yeah. But I think to get it all back to the Electrifying Classics, to kind of summarize it so we don't have a 15 million podcast. Old cars, overall, good for looking at, good for occasional use, with the exception of the E-Type, because that, as Damon said, has a halo over it. Good for occasional use, and good for some occasional nostalgic days. But for everyday use, you do want your nice, modern sat-nav, Bluetooth, defrost, heated...
And another thing, with the E-Type...
Bootleg, yeah.
With the E-Type, it's well maintained. Your dad takes care of it because nowadays it's a classic car. But if you abused on it like you would do with what's the equivalent? What's a modern cheap E-Type? 10-year-old Mazda MX-5? You'd beat on that car and it would still run. If you did that with the E-Type, be honest, it wouldn't last very long.
In a scrapyard halfway across the US, forgotten about, which would be insane.
The reason classic cars drive all right now, some classic cars still drive all right, it's because people take care of them, and you didn't do that in the past. Why do you think there's only, 600 licensed RS Cosworths in the UK when they made about, over 7,000 of them? There's only 600 left. People beat on those cars, crushed them, crashed them.
Countless 17-year-olds, yobbos, rolled them over in ditches.
The reason UK car insurance is screwed is because of the cars. And they didn't even own these cars. People would go out, 15-year-olds, 14-year-olds would go out, nick an RS Cosworth, ditch it into a river, and and repeat.
Yeah.
Like,
repeat, yes.
yeah.
And that goes back to what I was saying. If you resto mod a car, and let's say you take an old car and you put a modern engine, transmission, brakes, and you upgrade it, you have that look of a car that you like from the old days, and you can now go out and romp that thing and run it, and you don't worry about it completely blowing up and falling apart on you,
Right.
because it's built to do it now. You take it. Let's take a 64 and a half or 65. Let's just bump up a little bit. 65 Mustang, and you put a modern engine in it, and there's going to be some tubing involved to make it more rigid, and just put modern shocks, springs, and brakes on it, and now you can go rally crossing in something without worrying about scraping the door handles on every turn you take. And it will do it, and you can romp it without worrying about blowing it up. It's just better. The old cars can't do that, and you aren't going to work on it all that much. It'll be reliable. It'll be long term, and you still have that great look.
Yeah.
Electric EV conversions, hey, if that is your cup of tea, I say rock it. You do the. But the thing of it is they're way expensive. 90 grand for an MGB is just, to me, stupid. You're telling me I'm going to buy a little 2C MGB that's electric for the same money I could buy a C8 Vet for? No, come on, no. I would rather, take something and make it better. Like I said, the 240. Now, the Elephant engine being stuffed in is a bit extreme. I would probably stick to an R30 or R32 engine, a 6-cylinder.
Probably 26.
Yeah, and maybe turbocharged as well, so that way you get that little extra power, but you're not going crazy with it. It's still highly reliable. And it's something that you can drive every day. And if you take and, upgrade the inside and give yourself some creature comforts, it's just going to be that much more enjoyable. And then maybe have your really old car that you like and you want to keep that, then fine, do that. But old cars are old.
They're old for a reason.
Yeah, they're old because they've been around forever, like me. It's just once you're just old. So, and then you got to realize that with old cars comes a lot of money. Even if you go out and buy something that has been meticulously restored, you're still going to change plugs in it. If you drive it all the time, you're still going to change your plugs every probably 1,000 miles or so. There's still the old car niggles that you have to work through. You're still going to change oil every 1,000 miles. Why? Because them engines aren't made to do it. They aren't. So you aren't going to get a 10,000 mile oil change on them. You're going to be playing with a distributor all the time, and you're going to be out there with little matchbooks to make little cardboard wedges to get things to work. You're going to be out timing with your spark plugs, making gaps, making sure your gaps set right, so that way it sparks correctly. You're going to be out there with your timing light to make sure the car's in time. And you better know how to tune a carburetor, because they'll eventually go out and you're going to be out there fiddling with your jets and cleaning and replacing needles. It's not fun, y'all. I mean, if you love working on cars, hey, have at it, because that's what you're going to do. But these newer resto mods, you get all the pleasure of looking at the car, driving it, without all the tedium of taking care of it.
Yeah. So, viewers, let us know in the comments what you think about electrifying classics. Should it be done? And classics in general, are they good to drive? What do you think? And are there certain ones that maybe are better to drive than other ones? So let us know down below.
And smart motorways.
And let let us know your opinions on Damon's very opinionated article on Drive Tribe about the hard shoulder in the UK.
Or lack of.
Because that is a shame. There will be some people killed, inevitably. But yeah, let us know. Hope you enjoyed this video, and we will be back hopefully next week with another Court of Calls. Gonna try to get that going within the next week. Yeah.
Also, if you have any suggestions for what we should do for that Court of Cause,
Leave them in the comments.
yeah.
So any kind of comment, electric cars, hard shoulder, just anything you want to leave down below, suggestions, things we can improve on. We'd be more than happy to take those into consideration. And as always, it was a pleasure making this video. And see you guys next week.